All right, welcome back. And today I'm going to be painting these two pirate assault ships. Um, and to break things up, I'm going to go ahead, I think, and paint them a nice uh, bright green. That's what I think I'm going to do. A nice bright green. Then, possibly first, though, I am going to clip off one of the weapons that came with my Simeon X set from geez, I forget the name of the company now. I'll have to look that up or that'll make me insane. I've clipped the weapon off of one of the Vrusk, and I will be super gluing a different weapon on. Why? Because weapon swaps are cool, man. Obviously, duh. Everybody knows that. You know, if you've got a bunch of miniatures that all look sort of the same, the number one way to fix that problem is to do some equipment swaps. Like this Rusk has a totally different backpack. It's got a rifle strapped to the backpack, and he's getting ready to get a gun in his left hand that looks very much like a submachine gun. Right. So let's hopefully see if we can't get that in there with little problem. Same thing. I ordered a bunch of Dralocytes, and when they arrive, I'll be doing weapon swaps on them, giving them, equipment like on belts and stuff. Otherwise, you got a bunch of blobs that all just kind of look alike, and nobody wants that, right? Or maybe some people do. I don't know. We can see your email. But you know, all right. The wife just come in from outdoors. You know what? I have misplaced my green stuff, and it's really messing me up because I use green stuff quite a bit to get weapons, etc., to stick where I want them to. Mainly because, I mean, it hardens up like super glue. The super glue holds it, but at the same time, it like grabs it quicker and holds it for you. So, I mean, the secret is to just do a little dab, just a little dab, and you'll be fine. Okay, so let's see. This guy now has what looks like a submachine gun. So he has to be set aside because he's got fresh glue on him. So I can't primer him. But I have some already primered miniatures in front of me, and I'm going to paint them. I'm going to go with a really different color for these starships here. These are the pirate ships from Star Frontiers. I am going to paint them scorpion green, a really bright green, and then maybe give them a army painter green wash to pick out some details on them. And then, if necessary, do a little panel painting, you know, or maybe I'll you know, differentiate the engines on them, paint the engines a different color or something. I mean, that's a typical thing, but I was actually looking at eBay, and there was a guy on there trying to sell a box of these miniatures. Not a bad price, really. $30 for a complete privateers and pirates box. But on the back of it, I noticed that the miniatures from the privateers and pirate box were painted bright green, whereas the UPF ships were all either white or a really pale blue. And then, of course, Sathar ships are always like blood red. You know, not that you have to paint them that way. I mean, you can paint them however you want, but every picture I've ever seen of a Sathar ship, it's always been, you know. I like the idea of the movie The Strain, how you had the Strigoi and it was like a worm. I like the idea that the Sathar might actually function in a similar way where they can take control of a human being by implanting a Sathar worm in them. And maybe that's how they create some of their infiltrators. Yeah. Now, my battleships that I've shaded and all, they're going to be a real pain because I'm going to have to basically, I don't have to, but I'm going to go back and do panel painting. So every piece of the ship that's like not a detail piece, that's just part of the hull, I'll be throwing a little bit of a really, really pale blue on, you know? But like all of the detail parts, like the cables and all that, I will be leaving the color they are. And when it's done, it'll create a really good contrast. But anyway, now I got 7 minutes in and I'm going to hit the topic, right? And the topic is this. Right? Say you're a new young gamer, right? And you're looking for a sci fi game. There are some really good sci fi games out there, Mothership and all that. But I'm going to, Frontier Space. But I'm going to tell you this. Always, like, maybe consider Star Frontiers. It can be had relatively cheap in print and PDF on DriveThruRPG. And when you play with the advanced rules that add skills and all kinds of stuff like that, it's not a crunchy game, but it is a complete good game. And if you get the Nighthawk expansion to go with it, then all of a sudden you not only have the space rules for your characters, how they can do whatever they're going to do in space, but even better than that, you get a space war game with the game that can be played with counters on a hex paper, like Battletech. You got big space hex board that you fold out, and then you use counters that represent the different ship classes to fight each other, and it's relatively simple to do and a lot of fun, firing your las cannons and stuff like that at each other and seeing if you can get critical hits and destroying enemy forces and whatever. And there are some missions that actually link those two things, kind of like D&D did with Bloodstone Pass. There are some actual missions where your characters are like drawn into these epic space engagements between the Federation of Planets and Sathar forces that are trying to invade. And you don't want the Sathar forces to invade because, one, they don't tend to take a lot of prisoners. They tend to be real jerks about that sort of thing. So, yeah, if there's a world out there from Alter or whatever, you like to keep your stuff on it, well, then, to use a word my old drill instructor used to use, it would behoove you to make sure the Sathar do not land on that world, because in my scenario, it'd be even worse because they would be infecting people. But even if you don't use the scenario I'm talking about where they infect people, Sathar had this weird thing where they create monsters and then unleash them onto a world. You know what I mean? So, long story short, you just don't want Sathars on your home planet. It's just a bad deal for everybody involved. So your players play as the crew of an assault scout, and you're there with you get to control all the ships, but you're there with, the rest of the fleet, duking it out with the Sathar army, and it's pretty good stuff, right? Pretty good stuff. Okay, let's see here. We've got a shotgun. I like the shotgun. This will have to be clipped off. That will have to be clipped down. But then otherwise, that's going to fit right there. See, Drow-Sight giving him a shotgun because why not, right? Like I'm always saying on my live streams, anytime anyone brings up firearms and which firearms should they rush out and buy, I always tell anyone who asks me, the first firearm you should ever own is probably a shotgun, to be honest. And, you can't really go wrong with a Mossberg Model 500 or a Remington 870, which is my preference, but hey, whatever. So, but yeah, Shadowrun Star Frontiers is available, all of it, in print from DriveThruRPG, and it's relatively cheap, right? So it's like, for not much money, you could try a classic role-playing game, kind of like Classic Traveler, but not. And a lot of people that I game with, they actually love the Star Frontier system more than pretty much any other game system, because in Star Frontiers, if you want to do something, depending on your skill and your attributes and whatever, that's how you figure out if you do it or not. So if you want to shoot somebody with a gun, it's half of your agility or dex. And then if you have any skill in that weapon, every level you have adds 10% to the total that you got to roll under. And then you just roll percentile die and try to get underneath the number, right? That is super simple. And players that may have a harder time with like systems where, like D&D or other systems like that, they tend to pick up the percentile system very easy because it's really kind of a no-brainer. If you're like, okay, I'm going to duck down behind this box and take a shot at this guy with my laser pistol, and I say, okay, you know, take a shot, and you look on your character sheet and you see that your ability to hit with a laser pistol is 45%, then you just need to roll the die tens and get a 45%. I mean, easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? And I mean, honestly, that system, a lot of players have an easier time with that system than even D&D. Because, I mean, if you're playing old school D&D, you're like, okay, make your attack, add your strength, and if you're a fighter, maybe get to add something there, and then compare it to a number, which could be, THAC0 or an armor class, and then see if you hit 20-side die, right? It's a little bit more abstract than telling somebody, hey, roll 2 10-sided dice and get under a 45. It's just the way the human brain works. I mean, percentages and odds seem to be a lot easier for some people. So yeah, if you just tell them, well, you got about 50% chance of doing this thing, right? All of a sudden they're super cool with it because they're like, okay, because in their brain they know what 60% is, where if you say a roll die 20, I think you need a 16. Like I said, that's a little bit more abstract. So, back to my point, say you're that kind of guy and you're like, I'd like to play a science fiction game. Star Frontiers is readily available, super easy to play. The basic game is really just rolling attributes, picking your race, and then everything you try to do, you've got to roll under half of your ability score. So in a way, it's very similar to Frontier Space, which was based on Star Frontiers, right? But when you add the advanced rules, all of a sudden your characters can get a couple of skills to start with. You can use XP to raise attributes or buy new skills, etc. So your character can start the game with first aid, say, because they're doing the medical thing, right? Well, the skill chance to successfully perform first aid is 100%. So unless there's some severe penalties to the roll, chances are you're going to get that 100%. And then you're going to be like, cool. Person saved. Time to, cheer. Everybody's happy. What have you. And then, if after you get some XP, you can move up and be like, all right, now I'm going to get like minor surgery. And now your character's got a percentage chance to set bones and pull a bullet out of somebody, something like that, right? And you could get major surgery, you could get cure disease. I mean, you could advance in skills as a doctor. If you go the military route, then basically you're just training for combat. And you can train with different weapons or hand-to-hand melee combat, martial arts, etc. I mean, there's tons of different skill sets you can go for, and just because you picked one skill set as your primary has nothing to do with your ability to get any skill you want. If you've got the XP to pay for it, you can get it. So personally, I kind of like that, because if I at the beginning of the game, if I chose that my character was going to be a military for primary skills, but then I realized, hey, it'd be nice to have like first aid, I could save up XP and I could buy the first aid skill. So now, even though I'm a military PSA guy, I've got my first aid skill, so I can help out a little bit, Maybe I'll say I'm a combat medic, got a little first aid skill over here. And it's just the combination of that. The other thing about Star Frontiers, and this is a hard thing, granted, because, only one company makes miniatures for the game, and that company charges a lot for the miniatures, honestly, a lot. I've bought them, and I can tell you right now, they're good miniatures, but they're not necessarily worth what these guys charge for them. But some people just use the plasmoids from like D&D and the 8 guys that got D&D in trouble for saying they were slaves or whatever. Those guys will work. I don't know what you'd use for Rusk, but then again, the game comes with punch out tags that you can use. So if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm putting my 28 millimeter Russian and American Cold War vehicles up to get them out of the way, so that I can then put up my collection of Doom cosplay weapons. And in that way, my dream, my hope, my scheme is find my green stuff, because I know that I have a whole thing of it on the table. And look at that. I was right. My green stuff. I love my green stuff. Love my green stuff. I use like a sliver of this, so I need to find. You know what? It's like whenever I'm not looking for my scissors, I can't but trip over them all the damn time. And then the second I'm like, I need my scissors, it's like they hide from me, Here they are. I've got 2 pairs of paramedic shears on this table. And I tell you what, you wouldn't think that those big black-handled scissors could hide, but they do. Anyway, I guess that's really just my thing, And it's not for the older player, obviously. If you're a 50-year-old guy and you've been into role-playing for, all those years, the chances that you played Star Frontier are probably pretty good. And, you don't need me over here, like, trying to tell you, hey, if you haven't tried this, you should, because it's totally awesome, right? I mean, whatever. You know, a lot of you old grognards may actually know more about games than I do. So it just is what it is. But if you are a young guy and you're looking for a good sci-fi game that's kind of realistic, but also kind of campy and space opera like. Realistic because there's no artificial or anti-grav in the game. So, you know, get used to floating around in zero G, right? When you're traveling between systems and stuff. But you know, it has a couple, four different races you can play more if you want to use the races from Zebulon's guide. Just don't use any of the rules from that. And you've got a mysterious enemy that's just somewhere outside of known space, constantly raiding. And also, in the normal game, they would say paying evil humans to help them out, you know, to betray humanity. Well, don't gotta be a human, but you know, paying a member of the United Planetary Federation. But I like my game where maybe they just infect a person with the Sathar worm, right? Hell, you could get crazy and say maybe that's how they reproduce. Maybe there's some kind of weird parasite, right? On their home world, they have some kind of low tech, not very intelligent primate that they generally infect, but it works on pretty much any human or Yazirian. I don't think it'd work on a Vrusk since they're insectoid, or a Dralocyte since they're basically just giant amoebas. But okay, so got my green stuff in, lined the weapon up the way I want it, got plenty of glue on it, and call that one a day. Except I may find him a backpack or some kind of pack to go on his back. I mean, these are adventurers, right? So they need to have storage. They need to be ready for, you know, to land on a world and explore it. Especially if they're part of, like, you know, the UPF Explorer, you know, Scout Service or whatever. So draw sites are my favorite, by the way. So I found a backpack. That'll also go a long way to differentiating from any other drow sites. Because I've got a couple more somewhere around. So, you know, I don't want all my drow sites looking exactly alike, even though they kind of all do, you know, since it's just a giant amoeba, like I said. Or for you D&D 5e players, a plasmoid. So there he is. He's got his shotgun and a backpack. He's ready to go adventuring with his Rusk friend, who the lady I game with, one of the ladies chose to play a Rusk scientist, which I thought was super cool. Super cool, you know? Step outside of your comfort zone, play a hyper logical, not quite, but kind of hive mind. Not really, but sort of. Actually, not even sort of. Just, you know, they're very communal. They're not really hive mind insects, but they are very, very communal. So, you know, taken that on. Interesting. And I've always liked the Vrusk a lot, so. But yeah, that's basically all I had to say about everything. So I got a dentist appointment before too long. I need to go get ready for that. So I will bid you all adieu. Good painting, and as I said, Star Frontiers. It's still available, and it is a great game. So if you like sci-fi, it's an option. I mean, Traveler's great too. So you've got a couple of options there. Anyway, peace and love, guys, and God bless.